Hey there, maniacs and viewers. You watching the Main Man channel. It's not just a name, it's a way of life. You got to improvise, adapt, and overcome each and every day just to make it in this cruel old world. I appreciate y'all watching. Please make sure you like, share, and subscribe. That being said, topic of today's video is the alleged lucky spot / walking tall shamrock beating of Buford Pusser and revenge. What's true and what's not true? What's Hollywood and what's real life? And what is probably more likely the real story about it? We're going to cover all that deeply. My buddy Randall specifically requested this video. And though I did cover it in pretty good detail in the last video that I did about Buford Pusser, the Blood and Thunder years, I figured since so many people think these events are true the way they happened in the movie, I figured I need to jump off here and go back and cover this so that all y'all can understand what little bit of these events that did occur were nothing like the movie. Okay, that being said, let's move on. Take a look at this picture of Buford here. There's another one circulating. I couldn't find it right now, but Buford's got bandages on his face. This allegedly is what they claim after he got cut up on the face, head, and chest at the Plantation Club and left for dead in the parking lot and left unconscious, yet he woke up and drove to the hospital on his own and got stitched up. Well, that's not the case. But anyway, we'll move on from here. So supposedly, according to the movie Walking Tall, Buford went into the pub with his buddy, Ludie McVeigh. Ludie McVeigh is a totally fictional character. He does not exist. This happened after he returned home after he retired from wrestling. Well, according to Buford, the real story part of this happened before he even went into the Marine Corps. But as you're watching right here, you see bits and pieces of the fictional thing that happened. It didn't go down like this. In fact, it probably didn't even go down at all. But if anything did occur, it wasn't this severe. There's just no way. And he didn't receive a bunch of injuries to his side. The injuries he's claiming were around the head, neck, forehead, top of the head. But we'll get into that here in a minute. Most likely, if Buford in his early years was visiting the Plantation Club owned by W.O. Hathcock, then if he run his mouth or something like that, he might have got escorted out by some bouncers or something. He might have got tossed out on his keister or something. But it wasn't severe at all. I guarantee you it wasn't. I covered this pretty well in my last video. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show a couple of clips from my last video, and then we'll move on from there and talk about what we need to. He had a wreck in. Him and his buddy, Billy Earl Christopher. Buford went through the windshield of this car. And it really messed up his face, cut up his head, crushed his nose. It really jacked him up, and it also broke his spine. He had to spend 8 months in the hospital. This wreck happened about 1956, okay? This was the time right before he got out of the Marine, right before he went into the Marine Corps. So it lines up. Now, the reason I'm mentioning that is because this picture here is him recuperating. So he's out of the hospital now. His spine's healed. Yeah, he's still got injuries on his face being healed. So what happened was, he was still healing up from that wreck right before he went into the Marine Corps. Now, what Buford claims, this and another photo of right when he got out of the hospital, is Buford's got his head taped up. But the other photo, he claims that in this one, that this is what happened after he got beat up at the Plantation Club by W.O. and a couple of bouncers, which is an event that they fictionally told in the movie Walking Tall, but that's after he got home from being a wrestler and working in Chicago. But the thing about that is, this event most likely didn't happen. This was known about Buford. Buford was a pathological liar. Buford would exaggerate things. He probably didn't want everybody knowing that his face was taped up and his head was taped up after he got out of the hospital due to a wreck. So he probably made up this story, which was might have been partially true, but not, it wasn't really true. It was like saying, oh yeah, W.O. Hathcock and a couple of bouncers. There's like 5 of them. They beat me up at the state line, took 192 stitches in my head. I drove myself to the hospital after he beat me up and left me for dead in the parking lot in the rain. That was his story, but it most likely didn't happen. Now, there's another picture of the car he went through, which did all this damage that he claimed happened at the Plantation Club, but it was actually that car wreck. I don't doubt that there was an event that Buford was probably hanging around at the state line, maybe accused somebody of cheating, maybe accused somebody, or just run his mouth because he liked to run his mouth. He was too big for his britches, and he got his butt threw out on his keister by a couple of bouncers. I don't doubt that happening at all. I'm sure he exaggerated that. And W.O. allegedly couldn't remember Buford ever being there, I don't think, but there were so many people coming in and out of there, how could he remember? And how can he remember everybody that they had to throw out? And if they were going to do as much damage as Buford alleged they did to him, cause 192 worth of stitches to his head, that's attempted murder right there, and leave him for dead in a parking lot. Do you honestly think they're that stupid to do that? To risk an attempted murder charge and leave him in the parking lot where people could see him and everything? No. So I got to say, in my opinion, fact checking on this, every injury that happened to his face was due to this car wreck, and none of it was due to any incident at the Plantation Club. Every injury was due to this car wreck, and none of it was due to any incident at the Plantation Club, in my opinion.
Now, why would Buford lie about this? Just think about it. He was a teenager. If you're a big, insecure teenager, even though you're big, you're strong and everything, if you're insecure, you tend to sometimes be a pathological liar. Why do I say this, and why? It's pretty well known that Buford was known to exaggerate stories, make up stories, play like he got in a fight when he didn't, make some scratches on his arms, dirty up his clothes, and make it look like he got in a fight, when he was a kid. And then he would lie about it and say, oh, yeah, there was like 5 of them. I fought them all off. You ought to see those guys. And stuff like that. It's kind of like when you catch a fish. A fish story. First of all, that fish was about 2 pounds. It was a good-sized fish. But by the time it gets done, it was a 15-pound world record fish. You know what I'm saying? All right. And he's a teen at this time. He's all full of himself and everything. So let's say he did go to the Plantation Club, running his mouth about something, and he got tossed out on his keister. Well, let's say shortly after that, he had that wreck. What sounds better and makes you sound tougher? Oh, I had a bad car wreck and I went through the windshield and it cut up my face and broke my spine and I eat pavement. Or does it sound better? Oh, I got into it with some guys because I accused them of cheating at a bar. There was about 5 or 6 of them. They beat the crap out of me. It took 5 or 6 of them, and they left me for dead. But I drove to the hospital myself, and I got stitches put in my head, 192 stitches myself. Well, actually, he didn't make it to the hospital himself because he got through out the daggum windshield and broke his back, and he was in the bed for 8 weeks. In the real life story. So a wreck happened to him. He never got messed up at the Plantation Club, is what I think. Only the wreck happened to him. That's the most likely scenario. All right. How would I know this? Well, I can't say with 100% certainty, but I'm a lot like Buford. Okay? When I was 28, I was fixing to go into a professional wrestling camp and learn the trade of professional wrestling. Well, life got in the way. And how life got in the way is I broke my foot. And I didn't break my foot wrestling training. I slid in the bathtub, an old cast iron bathtub, because I was running a little bit late for work and I was hurrying with my shower. And I slid up my bathtub. And I sit down real hard and my foot hit the end of the bathtub real hard. I thought I just sprung my ankle. Well, I did sprain my ankle, but I also broke my 5th metatarsal on my left foot. Now, I went around and I told the truth because I was a little bit older at this time. I was 28. I told what actually happened. But if I'd been 18, 19 when Buford had that car wreck, I'd have probably went around telling everybody, oh yeah, I broke my foot in wrestling training. Because it would have sounded better. It would have made people thought, oh, cool, well at least he tried it and he broke his foot, you know. It sounds a lot better than me sitting down in the bathtub real hard and breaking my foot, which is truly what happened and truly what I told people. But like I say, if I'd been about 10 years younger, like Buford was at this time, I probably would have said what would have sounded better. I'd have made up some kind of story. And that's taking it from me. I compare myself a lot to Buford. I guarantee you, me and Buford had some of the same mental illnesses. And I was a pathological liar. I wasn't as bad when I was 28, and I told the truth about what really happened to me. But until I was about 35, folks, I was a pathological liar. It is what it is. I grew out of it. Still, sometimes during the conversation, I'll catch myself trying to tell a story, and I'm like, no, we ain't going to do that. We ain't going to tell no little white lie. We're going to tell the truth, or we're just going to keep our mouth shut. God had to deliver me from that. God had to deliver me from being a pathological liar. That's the only way there is to it. And he did. Now, moving back and going back to her story. Now, going back to her story, of course, Buford wanted revenge. Now, I don't think anything happened to him major at the Plantation Club, and I think he, like I say, he used that wreck he had to cover it up. Because it sounded better. But since he probably bragged and talked to everybody in the world to it, and everybody up in Chicago and everywhere else, he had to save face. So he had to get a little payback. The white lie had grew into a big old lie, and once that lie grows so big, you got to play it out, or people are going to finally find out you lied. So, Buford had to have a little bit of revenge. All right. In the Walking Tall movie, it showed Buford going there with a big stick and bust up the lucky spot. Let's watch a little bit of that clip and talk about it. Okay, so we got Buford getting out of the truck here. It's late at night. He's sneaking in. Lucky Spot is closing up. That's probably about the only thing that's true. Buford was at the Plantation Club the night of the Plantation Club robbery late at night. And somebody got attacked from behind. That actually happened. That's another thing that's true. But it wasn't with a big stick. We'll get into that here in a minute. But here goes Buford in there. And he's going to tear him up. He's going to get $3,630 from him because that's what they owe him for his station wagon and his doctor bills and lost wages and all that good stuff. Well, this didn't happen like this. Buford did not go into the Plantation Club alone. This was an elaborate, thought-out story. And here's what really happened. See this picture here? This is a picture of the Union Bag and Paper Company where Buford worked in Chicago. Buford had a couple of good buddies up there that worked with him. They were named Jerry Wright and Marvin King Jr. Well, I guess Jerry, Marvin, and Buford had cooked up an idea how to make some easy money and how to get Buford a little bit of payback because Buford, supposedly, they probably believed, got beat up at the Plantation Club. So they wanted to help him get a little payback and make a little easy money. So they come up with this elaborate scheme here. They had buddies clock them out at like lunchtime. I mean, actually, they had buddies clock them out at the end of the day, but they actually left at like lunchtime. So the story was that they were going to go a little bit down south, which was about, I think it was in Illinois or Ohio somewhere, and visit Buford's brother, John Howard. Well, they actually took Pauline, I think, there and the kids, but they continued on. They continued on. They went all the way down to the state line, to the Plantation Club, where Buford supposedly got whooped and left for dead. Well, of course, the owner of the Plantation Club is W.O. Hancock, who at this point couldn't recall if he ever seen Buford or not in the Plantation Club. So if anything ever happened with Buford, it wouldn't amount to a hill of beans at the Plantation Club. But Buford claims, all those stitches he got in the wreck, all the injuries he got in the wreck was due to the beating at the Plantation Club, which never happened. All right, or most likely didn't happen. I'd say it probably didn't happen. Pretty sure it didn't happen. Let's just put it that way. All right. Now, so, Buford and the two guys were hanging around the closing. So it was closing time. They were still kind of hanging around, and they had been talking to W.O. Buford wanted to buy a pistol from him because W.O. traded guns and traded stuff, there. Just like anybody else, would trade things. It's something we do in the South. We trade guns, sell guns, trade horses, sell horses, whatever, We wheel and deal, case knives, whatever, So they were going to buy a 25 ACP pistol from him, Buford was. Well, supposedly he went back behind the bar to get that gun or lock up the money, whatever, the Knight's Till, whatever. And one of them, Marvin King Wright or Jerry, Marvin King Jr. or Jerry Wright, I think it was Marvin King Jr., hit him from behind and knocked him silly. Hit W.O. from behind and knocked him silly. All right, so Buford's in there with two friends. There's nobody else in the club. W.O.'s wife and son had already went to bed in an adjoining room where they lived at the Plantation Club. So Buford didn't go in there fighting 5 guys. He went in there with 2 buddies to fight one dude because he was afraid to take W.O. one-on-one. So after his buddy knocked him silly, they beat W.O. nearly to death. They beat him down, put the boots to him. He was lying in a pool of his own blood. So they took the pistol and they took so much money from W.O. Then they headed back up towards Buford's brother's house. Now remember, they've got an alibi. The alibi is that they clocked out at 3 o'clock and then they went to Buford's brother's house. It gave them exactly enough time to get to Buford's brother's house and nowhere else. And of course, Buford's brother, John Howard, is going to testify for his brother. He probably let his brother in on the deal. Well, a few days later, they come up to Chicago and they arrested 3 of them. And they took them back down to Alcorn County, Mississippi, because this actually happened in Mississippi. It didn't happen in Tennessee. It did happen on the state line, but the Plantation Club was in Mississippi. So, there's the Alcorn County Sheriff at the time, Hilly Coleman, from Corinth, Mississippi. And there's the Alcorn County Courthouse in Corinth, Mississippi. So the trial actually took place in Corinth, Mississippi. It didn't take place in Monroe County like the Walking Tall movie said it did. And it was 3 defendants, not 1. All right. So Buford's daddy bailed him out, but he didn't bail the other 2 boys out. So they had to kind of sit in jail during the whole procedure and everything. So they had the trial. I've got several articles about the trial here. I'll give you plenty enough time before I move on through these slides. That way you can take and pause it and zoom in on these, screenshot them, whatever you need to do it. I'm going to move on again. Here's an article in the Corinthian about the battle between the witnesses. Of course, they've got time cards, all 3 of them, saying what time they clocked out. And they've got the testimony of John Howard Pusser, saying that he was with him. They were all with him all night. So they got a pretty good rock-solid alibi there. And there's no way that they could go against it. There's just no way that they could. And you see, here's another article on it. Actually, give you all time to screenshot that and look at it. Here's another article on it. There we go. That's one in the Adamsville News. It's where they're acquitted. I think this is the second part of it. But anyway, we're going to stop right there. So, to my good friend Randall, to all my subscribers, and everybody who thinks the movie Walking Trial was true, and the events portrayed in it were 100% true, that's not the truth. Buford was never beat up and left for dead at the state line. Buford and 2 of his friends went for revenge, or they just went to get W.O. Hathcock because they had an easy target and they knew he had a bunch of money. Whatever reason they did it, they made an elaborate plan to beat up on him and rob him violently and cover their tracks. So there you go. And the book, they don't talk about this in the Blood and Thunder Years book. And what little bit they talk about it in the 12th of August is they made it look like they tried to frame them completely. They tried to throw W.O. under the bus, saying it was all false charges. Then later on, after Buford had been sheriff for 3 terms, he admitted, yeah, we set it up and we robbed W.O. and we beat him up. Me and the 2 guys did. He admitted to doing it. Further books confirmed that he admitted to doing it. The book Buford. The book The State Line Mob by W.R. Morris. Those 2. The book Walking On by Buford Pusser. Admitted the so-called revenge plot against W.O. Hathcock. And so I think this was just all a white lie by Buford Pusser. It got blew out of proportion, and he had to act on it to make himself look tough and make himself not look like a liar. That's what I think this whole thing boiled down to. And they nearly killed W.O. and they robbed him 3-on-1. Attacked him from behind, knocked him silly. Attacked him 3-on-1, nearly beat him to death, robbed him, and left him for dead. And W.O., he was involved with some shady things back then, but he was just trying to make ends meet, feed his family. He didn't deserve to be beat up like that. Of course, everybody's going to say, well, you're taking the state liner's side. Yeah, on this one I am. You got to think, all these people are just people. They did what they had to do to make ends meet. Who's the bigger criminal? Somebody that sells bonded whiskey when they ain't supposed to and has a little bit of illegal gambling when they ain't supposed to? Or somebody who would attack somebody 3-on-1, beat them up, rob them, and leave them for dead? Buford admitted it. He admitted it. Him and 2 friends beat up and nearly killed W.O. Hathcock, left him for dead, and robbed him. Stole the gun, stole the money, and left him for dead. He admitted to doing this. He admitted to committing this heinous crime. So, yeah, Buford did a lot of good things in his sheriff's career. But that trial that you see on Walking Tall, where he got up and stood up, they do the same damn thing to any one of you. Well, he's the one that done it. He's the one that ganged up on a guy and beat him up and left him for dead. And it didn't even happen to him. Okay, I'm going to shut up now. We went way out there on a limb. I got to edit this video. But Randall, if you want to talk to me more about this, but folks, if y'all need any clarification in the comments or you want to talk about this, hit me up on Facebook or in the comments here on YouTube, and we'll talk about it some more, because I could talk about this for hours, but I felt it deserved its own video before I could move on breaking down Buford Pusser, the Blood and Thunder years. Because not Porter Wagner, but Bill Wagner, who wrote Buford Pusser, the Blood and Thunder years, he didn't even cover any of this in his book. All right, thank y'all for watching. Y'all the best people in the world. God bless you. Like, share, and subscribe, and I'll catch you next time.